Welcome to another edition of Chronicled. Change of faces again this week. We've got Mel Walker back with us, and it's lovely to see you, Mel.
Lovely to be back.
Smiling face and always there with some good stories. So I'm sure you've got some treats for us. I discovered this week that James is a bit of an influencer. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was really talking up the weather last week and saying how glorious it was. And look what he's delivered for a whole week too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's lovely.
Brings us a smile out for all of us, I think, and got a food festival coming up in June, haven't we? So maybe it'll last till then.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We never know. So, Mel, what have we got that's really exciting this week? I'm sure there's a lot of it.
Well, first story that we're going to talk about is the generator on the Link Road. Link Road, one of the Chronicle's favourite subjects. So a resident contacted us last week with concerns about how long the generator has been on the Viking Way roundabout, which is just off Barn Road.
Know it well.
Link Road, yeah. So the generator has been there now since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And a Freedom of Information request that we reported on this time last year said that it was costing the Cheshire East Council nearly £15,000 a year to keep up. And it's there to connect the street lighting along Wolstenholme Elmy Way, because it was never put in place in the first place. The electricity supply is underground because it was deemed through several independent surveys, according to the council, that it wasn't necessary to have street lighting there.
But the evidence based upon the number of times that the signs have been actually flattened, and because of the relatively low level of the roundabouts, are there that drivers at night clearly just fail to pick up the edge of the roundabout and just carry straight on.
Exactly, yeah. So there were a few collisions in 2021-22.
Mm-hmm.
They installed this generator with a view to it being a temporary measure, but then it's been there ever since.
Quite honestly, recently, and I travel that road quite frequently, it's within our parish.
Yeah.
And I've barely seen it on.
Oh, right.
Barely seen it on. When it does, it's still extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a side story too that there was an application to put advertisements on the roundabout. Surely that's a distraction, would only make the situation worse.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, so do we know if there's likely to be any progress if we are to get some decent lights there? Because all the local estates there have now got power. So why is there a problem?
So there's one estate which is still being finished off.
Castle Green, yeah.
Yeah, and we believe that, according to the council's most recent statement, which was to us in March 2025, they were waiting for the electricity supply to be connected up from the supplier. And that's as far as we've got with it at the moment. So it's just going to be a matter of still waiting.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
We could always go for gas supply, I suppose. Gas is more expensive than electricity. No, we can't go for gas lighting.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, probably. I don't know.
No.
I don't know about that. That's above my expertise.
I somehow think there isn't really a gas supply that runs along the Wolstenholme Road.
Who knows?
So it's a wait and see, is it?
Yeah, wait and see.
Well, I drive it about once a week, so I'll let you know if something dramatic happens.
Please do,
Yeah, it would be really good. So, Jenny come lately? No, is that the song?
You should be working for us.
I should be working for you. Just make the headlines up.
Yeah.
I'll leave you to do the creative writing. So, the second thing we're going to talk about is by-elections.
Yeah.
Although we're not due for anything until next year in terms of town council and parish councils, we have got a by-election coming up for the Congleton Town Council.
That's right. So there's a Northwood by-election has been called following the resignation of Councillor Emma Hall, who has remained on Cheshire East Council but left her position on the Town Council. Residents have 2 weeks in which, if they want to, they can call a by-election, and they have to write to Cheshire East. There needs to be at least 10 signatures to trigger the by-election. And a Reform candidate has come forward and said that they actively went out and canvassed for those 10 signatures.
Okay.
And that has triggered the by-election.
So my understanding then is that if you get that situation, then the bill for the by-election falls on the town council or a parish council if it was contested at that level.
Yeah, that's right. So it will cost now the town council about £15,000, whereas if they had been able to, if the by-election hadn't been called for and they'd just been able to co-opt somebody on, then it wouldn't have cost anything.
Yeah.
But since those 10 signatures have now gone in, the by-election's been called, and there are 7 candidates now in the running.
Wow.
For the position. So 1 from each political party, and I believe just 1 independent as well.
Mm-hmm. A bit of excitement politically. I guess it helps deflect us from the shenanigans of the House at the moment, doesn't it? We'll have our own little bit of political... I shan't say infighting, but I'm sure they'll all be very, very civilised and very, very appropriate in their behaviour.
Oh, well, hopefully.
We hope so, that
sure.
it's good-natured.
Yeah.
But, as I say, an interesting diversion. Congleton's got its own little bit of breaking political news.
Exactly, yeah. And it is quite interesting because it is the first time that a by-election has been called in Congleton since the local elections in 2023. Mm-hmm. And whoever wins this seat will only they'll have less than 12 months in post before the next local elections in May 2027. But so just to run through the candidates who are in the interest of
fairness.
Yes. We'll run through the candidates who are standing. So for Reform, it's a gentleman called Gary Wilson. For Labour, we have Ken Hadfield. Mm-hmm. For the Liberal Democrats, Paul Duffy, who's a former town councillor, will be making another run for it.
So we can expect to see Paul standing out there waving at people at the roundabouts like he usually does.
Hopefully, yeah.
In the pouring rain.
Yeah. There's a Green Party candidate called Chloe Myatt. The Equality Party, a standing candidate called Abby Smith. Mm-hmm. There's an independent candidate called Liam Donnelly, who I believe has some connection to Congleton TV.
Yes,
possibly.
Yes,
yeah.
He's our football hero, isn't he?
There you go,
Liam?
yeah.
Yes.
That's it. And finally, the Conservative candidate is Sam Worthington. So we've named them all there.
You've named them all, so we haven't fallen foul of the constraints that operate around any election in terms of media and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And we've covered just a little bit of background about all the candidates in this week's Chronicle on the back page.
So do we know the date that will actually come up?
Yeah, so the election is going to take place on Thursday, the 21st of May.
Mm-hmm. Well, everything else is happening everywhere else.
Yeah.
So nobody will notice Congleton at all. They'll all be running around the country and discussing the successful party.
Yeah, but at least Congleton won't be left out, because otherwise we'll have to wait another year.
We can join the political fun. So, turning to a subject which is very much on my heart as a former planner, the issue of where all these extra houses which have now got to be found sites,
yes,
where they are going to end up. We were told with absolute certainty that when the last local plan, which is in itself barely stamped and approved, but when that was produced, that basically we could assume that the Northern Link Road, Wilson-Holmby Way, was the limit of development within Congleton, but pretty obviously, as most of that has now been taken up one way and another, the search will be on if Cheshire East is going to meet the targets that have been set for it, to find other lands. So that might mean green belt. But I gather that Robert Douglas and Susie Firkin have actually started a bit of a campaign to say, well, wait a minute, we don't have to destroy Greenbelt. There are alternatives. Is that just about right? Yeah,
exactly. So Robert Douglas came up with the idea that if there are brownfield sites across Congleton and wider Cheshire East area which could be developed, Cheshire East should have a list of those sites and should be able to call upon the owners of those sites to sell them for development, even if that comes in the form of a compulsory purchase order through local government. So he and Susie Firkin have now started a petition calling on people to call for government to give Cheshire East those powers and finances in order to be able to claim for those sites.
Acquire those sites. We don't know where they are as yet. We've got, but we will see.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I mean, there's some urgency in actually getting the local plan itself through its inspection in public.
Yeah.
And while that's not in place at the present time, then the presumption is always in favour of the developer.
Yeah.
Unless there are very good reasons for not doing so. And as we know, Greenbelt is certainly not the safe area that it used to be in terms of protection from development.
No, exactly. And there are lots of speculative applications coming in at the moment, definitely in Alsager and in Sandbach, and no doubt also soon Congleton.
And I think what people don't realise is that the cost to the authority in contesting an appeal, where a developer very often will employ some pretty high-level barristers, is considerable. So they have to really be careful about where they can afford to argue against a presumption in favour.
Exactly, and if they lose that appeal, they will foot the entire bill.
Yeah. So what's the public got to do about this? Hopefully there's something they can do to actually just make the point that this is quite a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. So if they go to the petition website, they can search for Councillor Robert Douglas or Susie Firkin, and they'll be able to find this petition online to support action to give Cheshire East those powers to claim that brownfield land, which will hopefully then provide enough housing supply for those speculative applications to stop.
Well, let's hope there's some success in that, because Cheshire East wasn't too fortunate when it came to asking the government for extra money to avoid itself going into what we'll call special measures. Just hope that there is that money there, because brownfield sites, though they're more difficult to develop, the profit margins to the developers are lower, they do protect our glorious Cheshire countryside.
Yeah.
And when you see it in the weather we're having at the moment, with the trees in blossom and the lambs in the fields, makes you realise how glorious it is.
Yeah.
So there we are. There is a request there for anybody that's listening to make sure that they do fill in that petition and join a very worthy cause for the protection of the fine areas around Congleton. Read about it in full, because Mel wrote the story, therefore it's good. But make sure you do something about it, please. Finally, Mel, we've got a bit of a celebration of 35th anniversary, which has come up.
Yeah.
And some very interesting people too.
Definitely, yeah. So I was lucky enough to be invited to the 35th anniversary at Congleton Masonic Hall last week of the Congleton Writers Forum.
I've never heard of it. Tell me a bit more about it.
It's surprising how few people have known about it, because it has produced and encouraged some fantastic talent that's come out of Congleton. So it was set up in 1991 by a poet and playwright, award-winning poet and playwright called Kevin Fegan. He, at the time, was the Cheshire Poet in Residence, and as part of his role, his aim was to try and get people in Congleton to pick up the pens and start doing a bit of creative writing. So he managed to pull together 12 people who set up this group, and it's just gone from strength to strength since there. There's one remaining founding member left in the group, a lady named Diane Cook, who led the celebrations last week. And she talked a lot about, so much talent has come out of there, and it's such a welcoming and supportive group to anybody who enjoys writing. Doesn't matter what skill level you are, even if you just have a passion for writing. A number of the speakers that night spoke about how they didn't think that they were very good writers, or they weren't proper writers when they first started. But since then, everybody's been so supportive and encouraging, and some of them have gone on to have published works of their own, to win awards, and it's just a really, really good group.
It really shows you that there is so much hidden creative talent in Congleton. I don't know, we've got to wait to hear whether Congleton Town of Culture is shortlisted or not, but under the surface, if you scratch it, we've got this very creative group. I had the pleasure only a week ago of actually going down to Congleton Football Club for the season's art class exhibition, and the quality of that art was simply amazing. And exactly as you say, people who maybe at school were told, "No, you're rubbish," or "Your grammar's awful," or "Your spelling's awful." Or in that case, you can't paint, you're just rubbish. Took that to heart and thought they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then these opportunities come along for creativity, and that's so beneficial to them.
Yeah.
Self-worth, being recognised. Do they meet regularly in Congleton?
Yeah, so every Thursday at 7:30, they'll meet at Asbury Visitors Centre. Anybody's welcome to go along.
Right.
They have members who are seasoned writers, and I think one member of the group said that he'd had several published works, and he'd actually been the editor of a poetry magazine before he was invited to go along, but still went along anyway and gets so much out of it. And then on the other hand, we had other members, some of whom are neurodivergent or have dyslexia, all sorts really. And they all get something out of it, and they're all more than welcome. So it's an absolutely lovely group.
That was absolutely great. And it's really, Congleton's got so much.
Yeah.
And in fact, can you let me have the contact for that group? Because I'm sure Congleton Community TV would love to go out there and do a little feature about them.
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
I'm sure they won't be short of a word or two. So there we are, Mel, wrapping it up for this week. You've had a busy week, obviously.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is the quill pen, is it wearing down a little bit?
Oh, just a bit, yeah, but still raring to go for another week.
Jolly good. Well, we'll look forward to see what exciting events there are happening in Congleton next week. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And don't forget that request. It's down to you now to protect your countryside, the countryside you love, the countryside that you enjoy to get out in, and make the point that enough is enough when it comes to expanding into our beautiful Cheshire countryside. It's all right, wasn't it?
And breathe.
I'll be copy there.